2, 1.
Hi, boys and girls. Welcome again to George and Willy's World. We're so glad you're here watching us. I'm Mrs. Kranz, and this is my dog, George. And I guess you probably noticed Willy and Mrs. Mapes aren't here today. Mrs. Mapes' father had to have surgery, and Mrs. Mapes and Willy went down to keep her mom company, and I'm sure Willy is helping everybody feel much better. But I'm sure they'll be watching the show. George has been busy working at Alta Sierra School and also working at Madeline Helen Library, but it's her last week. And so now we're going to have to think about things to do over the summer. And I'm sure your parents will be thinking of things that they would like to do with you over the summer. But today we have a very special guest. Our guest is Ms. Harris, and she's the mayor of Nevada City. And she's also worked at a newspaper. So let's meet her and find out about her jobs. Welcome. I'm
Thank
so
you.
glad you're on the show.
I'm delighted to be here.
Great. So you're the mayor of Nevada City. What does the
am.
mayor do?
Well, the mayor is a job that first you run for office as city council member, and all the people that live here who are over 18 years old and have registered to vote then have the opportunity to select who they want for their council members. And you serve for 4 years. It's a volunteer position. You get to know your community very, very well. And during that time, the other council members may select you to be mayor for a year. So that's how I came to be mayor.
Okay. And what do you like best about your job as mayor?
I like getting out and meeting the people. So a big part of the job is ceremonial. I go to ribbon cuttings, I give speeches. This last weekend we dedicated the new Hirschman's Pond Trail, which is close to my heart. It's fun to do. So that's a real fun part of the job is getting out and representing the city. And you're kind of the biggest cheerleader for the city is how I see it.
So have you lived in Nevada City, this area, for a long time?
I've lived here 8 years now. My father was born and raised in the area in French Corral, went to Nevada City High School, and his parents were from here too. So I was familiar with the area from having visited many times as a child. That's why I chose to settle here.
Mm-hmm. And you also worked at the newspaper?
Yes, I worked at the Union newspaper, and I was their finance director or business manager, and that's the person who is counting the money and making sure that the bills are going out and they're correct and that the payroll is right and all those sorts of things.
And what kind of education did you need for that kind of job, or what got you interested in?
Well, before I did that, I worked mainly in the high technology field for companies like Intel and Oracle down in Silicon Valley in the Bay Area. And I also worked on Wall Street for a while for a large investment firm. So my background is finance, and in order to get those jobs, then I have a college degree in finance and applied economics, and then I have a master's degree in business administration in finance as well.
Okay, and probably the boys and girls may not know what finance means. You work with numbers and
money and things like the stock market and how you get the money together to make your business run, all those things, basically all the things that relate to dollars and cents.
Right. Great. And I understand you have several books to read us today.
I do.
Good. So boys and girls, are you ready to listen? I think George is ready to listen. So why don't you start with your first story, please?
Okay. Our first story today is called Arthur Meets the President, and it is by Mark Brown. Listen carefully, class, said Mr. Ratburn. This is a national contest, so do your best work. I love contests, said Muffy. What do I win? The winner visits the White House in Washington, said Mr. Ratburn. What do we write about? Asked Arthur. The subject is, how can I help make America great? Said Mr. Ratburn. Everyone started writing. Arthur started thinking. He thought about the time he and D.W. helped old Mrs. Tibble clean her yard. He thought about how much more they could do in the neighborhood if the whole class helped. Then he began to write. Weeks later, when Mr. Haney, the principal, was opening the mail, his hands began to shake. It's a letter from the president, he gasped. Miss Tingley, the secretary, fainted. Prunella, who was in the office with a stomachache, suddenly got better. Open it, she shouted. Mr. Haney clicked on the PA system. Attention, everyone. The President of the United States has written to announce the winner of the How I Can Help Make America Great contest, and the winner is our very own Arthur. He and his class are invited to attend a special ceremony at the White House. Mr. Ratburn's class went wild. Congratulations, Arthur, said Mr. Ratburn. You'll have to work hard to memorize your paper so you can recite it to the president next Wednesday. Memorize? Recite? Asked Arthur. Of course, said Mr. Ratburn. We'll all be there cheering you on. You're on TV, screamed D.W. when Arthur got home. Listen. He will recite his winning essay to the president and all of America, the announcer was saying. I feel sick, said Arthur. Not as sick as you'll feel when you're giving your speech, said D.W. There's so much to do before we leave, said Mother. Arthur, you'll need a new suit. What about me, asked D.W. I need to look beautiful when I meet the president. The president is very busy, explained Father. He'll only have time to meet Arthur and hear him recite his essay. If I can remember it, said Arthur. Of course you can, said Father. Just relax. Pretend I'm the president and practice right now. The thought of sitting next to the president made Arthur's mind go blank. He said. Uh-oh, said D.W. Monday at school, everyone was busy planning the trip. Oh boy, no homework for 3 days, said Francine. Not quite, said Mr. Ratburn. Everyone groaned. Each of you will have to do a report, he explained. As we tour Washington on Wednesday, you will be our guides, so get to work. I'll see you all at the airport tomorrow morning. Arthur tried to study his speech on the plane. Don't forget to mention me to the president for the Teacher of the Year award, Mr. Ratburn reminded him. Aren't you excited? Asked Buster. I'm too nervous to be excited, said Arthur. You need help, said D.W. I'll make the speech for you. I have a lot of ideas about how to run the country. That night at the hotel, Arthur was too worried to sleep. What in the world are you doing? Asked Father. What if I forget my speech and the president laughs at me? Arthur asked. The president would never laugh at you, said Father. Why don't you write your speech on note cards and keep them in your pocket, he suggested, just in case. What a great idea, said Arthur. He felt much better. Now try not to worry and go to sleep, said Mother. The next morning, everyone met in front of the Jefferson Memorial. Arthur, you look so handsome, said Francine. Ready to meet the president, said Mr. Ratburn. I guess, said Arthur. He reached into his pocket to make sure the note cards were there. Time for your reports, called Mr. Ratburn. Only 1 more hour until we're due at the White House. Our first stop is the Washington Monument, the tallest building in Washington, explained Francine. 898 steps to the top. Everyone ready? Are you kidding? Said DW. I'm taking the elevator. This is the Capitol, where Congress makes the nation's laws, said Sue Ellen. I think we all know how important it is to obey the law, said Mr. Ratburn. The National Museum of Natural History has great mummies, said Buster. Follow me. No thanks, said Muffy. I'll meet you at the gift shop. The last stop was the White House. It's so big, said Arthur. Not as big as Muffy's house, said DW. The White House has 132 rooms, said the Brain. Every president except George Washington has lived here. It has a barbershop, clinic, indoor pool, theater, gym, and its own library. And the president's office has fancy gold curtains, just like the ones in our living room, said Muffy. Excuse me, said the president's secretary. The president is arriving. Please follow me to the rose garden. Arthur gulped. It was almost time. He took out his note cards. Suddenly, a strong wind blew through the garden. Here comes the president, squealed Muffy. My speech, gasped Arthur. Relax, said Mr. Ratburn. You'll be fine. DW wasn't so sure. She had a plan. Arthur had never seen so many important-looking people. Good afternoon, Mr. President, he began. When I think about what I can do to make America great, Arthur began to feel very warm. His knees began to shake. His mind went blank. This is the worst day of my life, he thought. Suddenly, Buster giggled. Soon everyone else joined in. Even the president was laughing. Arthur turned bright red, and when Arthur saw what they were laughing at, he laughed too. Now Arthur felt much better. He recited his whole speech without forgetting a single word, and in conclusion he said, "We can all help make America great by helping each other." Good, said DW, then help me down. And look at DW, holding upside down his whole speech for him. What a nice sister she turned out to be. And that's our first book of Arthur Meets the President.
Wow, that would be so exciting to go to the White House and meet the president.
It would be.
And what's our next story?
And our next story is quite different. This is called The Paper Boy, and the story and the paintings are by Dav Pilkey. The mornings of the paper boy are still dark, and they are always cold even in the summer. And on these cold mornings, the paper boy's bed is still warm and is always hard to get out, even for his dog. But they do. And softly they step down the quiet hall, past the door where the paper boy's father and mother are sleeping, past the door where his sister is asleep, and down to the kitchen where they eat from their bowls. And out to the garage where they quickly fold their papers, snapping on green rubber bands and placing them in a large red bag. It's hard to ride a bike when you're loaded down with newspapers, but the paper boy has learned how to do this, and he is good at it. The paper boy knows his route by heart, so he doesn't even think about which house to pedal to. Instead, he is thinking about other things, big things and small things, and sometimes he is thinking about nothing at all. His dog, too, knows this route by heart. He knows which trees are for sniffing, he knows which bird baths are for drinking, which squirrels are for chasing, and which cats are for growling at. All the world is asleep except for the paper boy and his dog, and this is the time when they are the happiest. But little by little, the world around them wakes up. The stars and the moon fade away, and the skies become orange and pink. And when the paperboy has delivered his last newspaper, he and his dog race home. And his empty red bag flaps behind him in the cold morning air. Soon they are back home. It is still dark inside, but the sounds of morning are all around. His father and mother are awake and talking softly in their bed, and his sister is downstairs watching Saturday morning cartoons. And back inside his own room, the paperboy pulls down his shade and crawls back into his bed, which is still warm. And while all the world is waking up, the paperboy is going back to sleep, and his dog is sleeping too. Their work is done. And now is the time for dreaming. What a nice story.
Oh, that's a great story. I never heard that. Thank you so much for reading those.
Thank you. I
Yes.
enjoyed it very much.
And it is so nice to wake up in the morning and have the newspaper in the little box ready to be read.
It's true.
Yes, I admire the people, especially when it's raining or snowing
Yes.
out. And thinking, I had a friend who delivered the newspapers, and I know she said she got up around 4 o'clock to do her route. And it's like, oh, it's so cold and dark.
It is, and the weather can be difficult, and things can go wrong, and the papers aren't ready,
Right.
or your car breaks down, and they really try to get it to your doorstep by 6 a.m. because some people have to get in their car and drive to Sacramento fairly
That's
soon
right.
thereafter.
That's right. But this is a great story. That was great. So if you'd like to, thank you so much for reading that, but we're going to do some crafts now, and then we'll probably have a little bit of time to talk when the crafts are done.
Okay.
So we're going to talk about things that we can do with newspapers. And one of the things we can do is make these great sailor hats. And if you use colored newspapers, they look really pretty like this, or you can paint or color on the newspaper when you're done. And you can also use colored paper, and you could make a little hat for your dog or for your dolls. And it's very easy. You just take a piece of newspaper and you fold it in half, and you put the open sides towards you. And then you, let's see, you fold down each side to make a triangle like that. Just press it down. And this piece of paper, I'm going to take the bottom and fold it a couple of times to make the brim, like that. And then I'm going to fold it on the other side. And we have a little hat. So it's really easy. It's a great thing to do with your newspapers. And then we have another game called Newspaper Scavenger Hunt. And you're going to have to ask your parents to help you. The nice thing to do is go through a magazine or this kind of newspaper folder and find some pictures of things that you'd like. We found an alligator, picture of a leaf, a rainbow, flowers, tree, and a handprint. But you could find a picture of a dog or a cat. And the nice thing is that you go through and you find the picture, and your parents can help you cut it out. See, I found an alligator. And then you glue it on the chart next to the name. And the nice thing about this is that you start recognizing the word with the picture. So you start to recognize the word for alligator with the picture of the alligator. So I'm going to put the alligator down on our chart. Now I have to find a leaf or a rainbow. Let's see what else we find in here. But it's really fun. Oh, here are some leaves. We can cut those out. I think I'm going to find the pictures, and then I'm going to glue them all on. So I'm looking for flowers and a rainbow. Oh, here's a beautiful rainbow that somebody made in a picture. And if you want boys and girls, you can also draw a picture, but it's kind of nice to take them out of the newspaper. Now we're looking at flowers and trees. Here's some trees. So many things you can do with newspapers. And I think there's some pretty flowers. Oh, here's some sunflowers. Those are really pretty flowers. We have them starting to grow in the garden. And all we need, I think we need is a leaf. Let's see. Well, let's glue these on. Okay, here's our rainbow. Oh, here's our leaf. Here's our flowers. And our tree. So the only thing I'm still looking for is a handprint. I'm sure I saw one in here. Oh, here's a little handprint that we can use. And one of the things that I use with my old newspapers is I have a worm farm, and you can learn how to make them. The master gardeners give lessons at the fair and at the gardening center, and they will show you how to take newspaper and make bedding for your worms. But this is our nice little scavenger hunt little chart all filled in, and I think it's something that would really be fun. Then you can hang it up and you can practice. This is what the word for alligator looks like. And they're all different things that you could put on the chart. So I think this would be a game that would be lots of fun to do. And I'm sure that your parents will be looking for things to do this summer. The Nevada at NCTV, the community calendar, has all kinds of activities that are really nice to do. If you'd like to write George and Willy, you can write them at NCTV or George and Willy's World, 235 South Auburn Street in Grass Valley. You can email them at georgeandwilly@yahoo.com. And if you've missed any of our shows, or you just like to watch some of them again, there are DVDs of the shows available at the Grass Valley Library, at the Madeline Helling Library, and at Sierra Nevada Children's Services. So feel free to take out the DVDs. Now, Mayor Harris, I understand that you also have a dog. George seems to have left us at the moment. So what kind of a dog do you have?
I have a wire-haired fox terrier, and so he's kind of related to George, and he's very sweet and loving and has tons of energy, loves children, loves other dogs, and he's a real sweetheart. I love him very much.
Mm-hmm. And have you had him since he was a puppy?
I have, and trained him, and yeah, so it's been 7 years now that I've had him.
Right, so he's the same age as George.
He
George
is.
is also 7.
Well, they're wonderful companions,
Yes.
very sweet and loving.
Yes, my house feels empty if we don't have a dog.
Yeah.
Do you have any other pets?
Not right now. I did have a cat, and she was really a sweetheart too. Very different cats and dogs, of
Yes.
course, but they're both lovely companions. And the nice thing about a dog is that it gets you out walking.
Yes.
And so it's very healthy, and you see your neighbors and other people in the community. So it's a nice social and exercise thing to do as well.
We walk George in the morning and also in the afternoon, and I know a lot of times children from Alta Sierra School will say, I saw you walking George this morning. So it kind of get to know your neighborhood, get to know your neighbors.
Sometimes if I'm working or having meetings, then someone else will have my dog for a while. And so I think he now knows more people in Nevada City than I do. They're always saying, "Oh, hi, Harv, how you doing here?" So that's pretty cute.
Right, that's very nice. Yeah, when you said that you were a volunteer, I didn't realize that the mayor and the city council were all volunteer positions.
They are.
It seems like a big commitment of time and
It is, but that's a part of life, and for the children, as you get older, you'll understand that helping out in your community and doing something charitable is something that's rewarding for yourself as well as very necessary in your community too.
do children ever visit the council meetings or?
Sometimes we have Boy Scouts that come. We have the high school kids because they need that for their government class.
Oh, really?
So they'll come in and we'll sign off their paperwork at the end of it, and they'll ask us some questions about the meetings.
Oh, that's a great idea. So they can get involved in learn about local government.
Right.
And maybe get interested in
Yeah, I
being
hope
part
so.
of it. Yes, that's a great idea.
So that's my volunteer work, just like this is your volunteer
Right,
work. And
right.
it's something that you hope helps people out in the community and that the children enjoy.
Right, right. I find it very rewarding as you find your job, so I'm sure that's true. Hey, George. So, well, thank you so much for being with us today. We've really enjoyed having our guest, Mayor Harris. And remember, boys and girls, to please read and listen to lots of stories, do your jobs, and have fun playing. And we look forward to seeing you on the next George and Willy's World. And I hope you come back and join us again.
I would love to, and
That
thank
would
you
be
very
great.
much for having me today.
Great. Goodbye.